this day is going to be about digitization. So you're reading, you have 2 articles to read and a few websites to take a look at. I will also do a separate video guide on how exactly to use the geolocate feature inside of Specify, so that when you come into class you'll be ready to go on how to do that. That's going to be a pretty exciting day. But first I want to give you a little bit of background. So this digitization of collections is a major direction right now. This is an area of governmental funding and an international push for moving biological diversity studies into the digital era, basically. So this article here is going to give you a little background on where we're at with digitization and what the challenges are that we're facing right now. This was a keynote article for an entire journal full of articles about digitization. So I'm just giving you the intro article. There are many other more detailed articles within the Zukeys 209 issue in 2012. So this abstract, as usual, sets you up for the paper. It's going to tell you the benefits of digitization, so pay attention to that. In the introduction, they're really going to explain things and justify things. They're going to talk about what biodiversity, what's its role in the digital era. So it's one of the big grand challenges. It's going to give you some justification here. As you're reading down, think about here, vouchering specimens. Why is citing voucher specimens so important? Down here, we start talking about how there are massive amounts of data available, but if you think about the training for biologists, biologists may not have the tools to use it or add to it always, and so collaboration with bioinformaticians is critical, and also training for biologists may need to change as biodiversity moves into a digital era. We also need resources to manage this data, so that's kind of where this section is going. And keep reading, and I just want to point out down here they start talking about collaboration and teamwork, so I just wanted to point out you guys are ahead of the game learning how to work in teams. Here we have a section on priorities and use cases. There are a lot of specimens, right, in a lot of different collections, and so how do we prioritize what needs to be digitized and when? There's a little section here, a little bit about what can you do with digitized data, and I'm working on having you guys maybe answer a couple of questions using digitized data to get a little experience with that as well. It's always important to think about the stakeholders when you're coming up with a project, and the scientific collections community in 2010 drafted a document for a plan for how to go about digitizing collections, since it's such a huge effort. And when there are links like this, it's great to go ahead and go right to them and see what people are saying there. So I've called up the Integrated Biocollections Alliance and taken a look at what their strategic plan calls for. And actually there are a couple of interesting things in here if you want to take a look. I have a couple of collections use scenarios. Here's one, there's another one here, there's another one a little further down. These are some great examples. If you're having trouble placing what this other article is talking about, this is more broad, right? So take a look at the examples that they're talking about to help you understand. A little further down they start talking about funding, and when you see something that has NSF funding, you know that that's an important component for the research, and so this is something that our federal government has decided is a very important problem to be addressed. So if you just go to the NSF website for Advancing Digitization of Biodiversity Collections, you can take a look here and see the synopsis of the call for proposals, right? So the third Friday in October annually, they have proposals received, and they work on awarding funding to get people's collections digitized and to support infrastructure as well. All right, back in your article here. Go ahead and skim through here. Take note, geolocate. This is one of the services available in Specify. This is actually the one that we're probably going to use, and it's a way of automating the georeferencing that you'll be doing for the collections. We point out BioBlitz. You already know what a BioBlitz is because we read about those before. So they're talking about other programs and things that generate specimens and generate data, right? We know these programs. Okay. Talking about standards, we've talked a little bit about how to use abbreviations and what abbreviations to use and not use, and it turns out this is a much broader problem. If you're wanting to search a database of thousands or millions of specimens and you want to find all of them that have a certain feature in common, you want all of those to be coded with the same word so you can search for them. And so there exists something called Darwin Core. They give you the website here, and I think go ahead and take a look. Scroll around the Darwin Core website, see what they're talking about. I went into type vocabulary. So this is a set of values to use when you're categorizing collections. So here's some vocabulary for location. How do you write about a location, a locality for a specimen? How do you write about a taxon? How do you write about preserved specimens, fossil specimens, living specimens, and so on? So this is clearly a very large effort, right? If you look a little further down in your document here, they also talk about the Genomic Standards Consortium, similar, right, to the Darwin Core. It's going to be something that has some standards for talking about and storing data and using data. So I went to their website here to see, what do they say they're about? Read what they say there. And go ahead, and one way of judging what people are doing is take a look at their publications, right? Here they have their mission, that's helpful. But, what are they publishing? What are they doing? What are their projects? And just scroll around and see what that's about. We'll do a whole section on DNA sequencing and in museum collections, and so this is a good thing to know about. That's in the second half of the class, by the way. Okay, so keep going, getting through this article here. They talk about the BiSci call, Biological Science Collections Tracker, and I don't know if I opened that up for you. Doesn't look like I opened that up for you, so that's one that you can open up yourself. It's something that I've looked at. Take a look and see what is a GUID, how is it useful. Now they're going to start talking about risk assessment, something that all good museums are always thinking about. How do you make sure that your data are preserved over time? How do you take care of them? As you go through this, they're going to talk about data storage, and equipment is another expense and requires expertise. And so how do you build that into your funding sources to make it a sustainable expense? And this conclusion is a really good one. So you might even want to start with the conclusion. If you're having trouble, if you're getting sort of bogged down in the middle, maybe take a look at the conclusion to get your thoughts back together. I kind of wished I had done that when I read this article. Okay, one more article. This one is called Biogeomancer, Automated Georeferencing to Map the World's Biodiversity Data. This is published in PLOS Biology, which is a great journal, one that makes their publications free of charge, so I really appreciate that. So Biogeomancer is going to be a little more of a broad overview, and it's going to talk just about georeferencing. So the last article was talking about digitizing, which is a bigger effort. It's not just placing the specimen in a location, it's also attaching images or sound files or other metadata. This is just about georeferencing, which is what we're going to do on Friday, so it's a good thing to read through. Usually articles start out with a little bit of background, where we're at, excellent. 3 main challenges to the effective use of specimens in natural history collections. These are excellent challenges to think about. So what are those main challenges, and what data or information is most used by consumers? Because we're thinking about prioritizing the digitization process. So you want to know what people want. You keep going down. The Global Biodiversity Information Facility. This is something we're probably going to end up using to take a look at what records are available. Go ahead and go to that website. Do a search. See how many robins they have. See how many male specimens of squirrels they have. Take a look and see what that's like. Here, now they say the focus of this article. So that's clearly something to pay attention to. right? 3 main challenges. Focus. This is how you read through this article here. So we're actually continuing a little more with the justification and the background for the need here, the status of georeferencing. But here we go into the challenges, right? Georeferencing is time consuming, so they go through what that means. More issues with georeferencing throughout here. And then really nicely they're going to summarize for you the issues at this point in time. What are the problems right now? And then they go with how geolocate or biogeomancer project is really helpful for that. And biogeomancer is something you can use and specify. We will probably use geolocate, which is related to biogeomancer. What I really like about this article here, though, is this figure, and this is actually why I included this for you guys to read. For one thing, I think it's an easy article to read, but this figure gives you a visual representation of how georeferencing works, right? You guys are familiar with labels now. You know that you have this data on your label, 14 miles south, 2 miles west of this location. How do you turn that into, down here at the bottom, a point on a map? And how do you do it with some computer software so that it's accurate and it's fast? So this is a nice figure to explain that. They've got a marketing pitch down here about how biogeomancer is better than everything else. That's great. There were 2 key components up here. They talked about ambiguities and they talked about validation tools. These are 2 things that are critical to making data useful. And I think I mentioned before, but we will read articles later in the semester where people have used georeferenced specimens to answer questions, and at least in one of the articles we'll read, it'll explain how ambiguities and imprecise locations need to be corrected and how they should be handled. So those are your readings for Friday, and don't forget to look at the video guide for how exactly to georeference in Specify. That'll go up soon as well.